All right, welcome in everybody. I am joined by D1Baseball's Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers. We're going to preview the 2026 college baseball season that is right around the corner. Time is flying by. Guys, you came out with your top 25 rankings. I want to dive into that first with UCLA coming in as the number one preseason team. What went into the decision there over the reigning champs, LSU, Texas, Mississippi State with a bunch of new players and a new head coach? Kendall, want to start with you?
Sure. I think the big thing with me with UCLA is, the common denominator of a championship team is a club with a lot of pieces back. I mean, whether it's Rock Chalowski, Mulawai Lavu, guys like that. I mean, UCLA has experience up and down the lineup. They got experience in the pitching staff. And so I just think John Savage's club, after they kind of tasted it last year in Omaha, I think they're one of those teams that can finish the job this year.
And Aaron, looking at the teams right behind them with LSU and Texas, Mississippi State coming all the way up to number 4. What went into the decision there when looking at that team?
Well, it just dramatically improved, and a lot of it comes from all the players that came with Brian O'Connor and his coaching staff from Charlottesville to Starkville. It's a really talented group. That Virginia team underachieved a little bit last year, but boy, they had some star power, and now those guys are in Starkville. And it's a team that I think has a lot of hunger, a lot to prove after the way things went last year for Mississippi State and for Virginia. But I mean, there's again Aiden Teal and James Nunnally and Thomas Valinkas, some of these guys that came from Virginia. I think that's the real difference maker for Mississippi State. So we just think it's been one of the most balanced teams in the SEC with a lot of depth on the mound and in the lineup.
And then looking at LSU and Texas, we'll start with LSU. What are your thoughts on if this team could repeat and go back to back? They do bring back a lot of talent, but not necessarily the pitchers on the mound that we saw in Omaha last year.
That's right. And certainly Kate Anderson and Anthony Ianson were a huge part of that national championship last year. But you know what? So was Kason Evans. And Kason Evans now slides from the bullpen into the rotation like Anderson did the year before. And we think he can have a similar kind of a season as that Friday night ace for them, a true blue chip guy. They need Cooper Moore to come in and eat a lot of innings for them as the number 2 starter. They've got a couple of very exciting younger arms like William Schmidt and Marcos Paz and Maverick Rizzi. These are all big arms, real prospects, guys that have game-changing talent. And certainly we know what they've got back in the lineup with Derek Curiel and Stephen Milam leading the way. It's going to be another outstanding ball club, and they've just done such a good job of replacing the guys that they've lost from year over year.
How about Texas, Kendall? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I think the big thing with Texas is they feel like they have unfinished business. I mean, this is a team that in year one in the SEC won the regular season crown, but they got knocked out in a regional by a really good UTSA club. And the thing I love about Texas is the sheer pitching depth. Max Wiener did a really good job at A&M. He's done an excellent job at Texas. And when you look at Texas, Luke Harrison, who had a really nice bounce back campaign last year, is back. Dylan Valantis moves from the closer role as one of the top pitchers in college baseball to the Friday night role. Jason Flores is kind of a breakout star candidate, got up to 96, 97 in the fall, just a big time arm, big sturdy build. He's going to kind of round out the rotation. Oh, by the way, you've got Max Grubbs back, Ruger Riojas back, and then a talented freshman class of Michael Winter and Brett Crossan kind of leading the way. So you really like their pitching staff. Then offensively, they have key pieces back like Adrian Rodriguez. But you look at the addition of Carson Tenney, who certainly has big time power. He's just a really nice catcher for transfer from Notre Dame. Then Aiden Robbins, who had a really good summer, offensively at the Cape Cod League, transfers in from Seton Hall. He's like the consummate like baseball rat. Like I love watching that guy hit the baseball. He's super hard nosed. Pretty high bar fight meter for him. But yeah, you add him to the mix too. That is going to be a solid lineup. So there's balance, but there's an incredibly deep pitching staff. And I would argue Texas has the deepest pitching staff in college baseball.
Okay, well we're going to get into that now that you mentioned it. So you would argue Texas has the deepest pitching staff in the country. Aaron, I'll let you weigh in here because I want to just talk the best weekend rotations in college baseball. What do you think outside of Texas now?
Outside of Texas, yeah, I think North Carolina, Oregon State, and Florida all come to mind to me. And interestingly, they're ranked 11, 12, and 13 in our rankings. They're not in the top 10 because there are some question marks with the lineups and a lot of turnover there. But, I mean, my gosh, just loaded on the mound. You look at North Carolina with Jason DeCaro and Ryan Lynch now sliding into that rotation spot, kind of like Kason Evans for LSU, similar kind of talent. I mean, I think a real first-team All-America kind of upside guy. And Folger Boaz healthy again. This was a left-hander that started out his college career as their Friday starter before he got hurt. He's back healthy again, better than ever. If that's your Sunday guy, got to feel really good about it. And in Oregon State, of course, with Dax Whitney, I mean, a first-team preseason All-American at the top. You've got another All-American with Ethan Kleinschmidt behind him from the left side, and then Eric Segura's got really good stuff. Again, an elite Sunday starter. So those two really stand out. And then Florida, I mean, just the power arms, the upside of their group is really exciting. I think there's maybe just a little bit more to prove with Liam Peterson and Luke McNeely, but Aiden King is an All-American now, heading into his sophomore year. That's a great group. I mean, we're talking about all elite arms with mid to high 90s stuff and breaking balls, and could be really good draft picks. If they can put all together, I think that group is right there with Oregon State and North Carolina.
Yeah, can I give you one more? I mean, keep an eye on Coastal Carolina. You know, the national runner-up from last season, Cameron Flukie, arguably the top pitcher in college baseball this season. You know, Hayden Johnson was a guy that, a lot of buzz in him in the fall. They feel like he's going to take a big step forward. And you got a guy like a Ross Norman, a transfer, who, was up to 96, 97 in the fall for Coastal. So that's another rotation that is expected to be very good.
I was just going to bring up Cameron Flukie in Coastal Carolina, trying to make it back to Omaha. Any underrated or not talked about enough weekend rotations? I mean, you look at some teams like Georgia that lost, 80% of its pitching staff and brings in how many guys from the transfer portal for their pitching staff? Any other teams like that you think are underrated or not talked about enough that have a lot of potential or upside for this year?
Well, I'll give you one that's lower in the rankings that I think we've talked about some, but Arizona is in the top 25 just because of its starting pitching. I mean, there's a lot of question marks in that lineup. It's really a lot to prove there. But with Owen Kramkowski and Smith Bailey back, two pillars from the rotation of an Omaha team last year, and Bailey was somebody who was just kind of knocking on the door of our preseason All-America teams as well. And then you've got, I think, Colin McKinney is the third guy. Pretty good. So I think that's the one that really stands out to me lower in the rankings. Arizona can really pitch.
Yeah, TCU would be in kind of that same vein. Like TCU would be a club to keep an eye on. Tommy Laporte, obviously, one of my favorite guys. Like he kind of wants to go at it with everybody, and he's an elite pitcher. He'll be their Friday guy. Mason Brassfield. We talked about breakout candidates so much. Mason Brassfield from the left side. I know Kirk Sarloos thinks he's going to have a huge year. And then you look at the number 3 spot. And Trevor Baumler, guys like that, like he's got a chance to be really good too. So I would keep it on TCU out of the Big 12 as well.
So let's move on. A lot of coaching changes for 2026, and that was certainly a big topic in the offseason. You got Brian O'Connor going from Virginia to Mississippi State. Mississippi State bolstered its entire lineup and ball club with that move. You got a new head coach at Georgia Tech. You had Tony Vitello leaving Tennessee and Josh Elander taking over. So just a lot of movements and a lot of expectations. Which coaching change, one, has the biggest expectations and could have the biggest impact for this year? Aaron, we can start with you.
Well, I think the obvious answer is Brian O'Connor, so I'm going to take it.
Low-hanging fruit.
Low-hanging fruit.
Man, he went on a limb on that one.
Yeah, Hall of Fame coach. Anytime you get a Hall of Fame coach who's really still in his prime, I mean, that's the amazing thing is O'Connor started so young. He's been at this, as a head coach now for more than 2 decades, and he's still got a lot of good baseball left. I mean, that was an absolute grand slam for Mississippi State, a guy that's won a national championship, has been to Omaha a bunch of times, has a proven track record as a talent evaluator and developer and motivator. He checks every single box. So that's the one that leaps out. And I'm going to go also to Georgia Tech, where James Ramsey takes over now for Danny Hall. First time in over 30 years that Danny Hall hasn't been leading Georgia Tech into the season. But you know what? This is the guy that has been groomed for this job. James Ramsey has been his number 2 guy for a while now. It's kind of been the heir apparent. Couldn't be more ready for this. I mean, heading into the season, they knew that it was going to be Danny Hall's last year. And so I think that really helps. It gives them an advantage of having a full extra season to kind of prep him for that job. And he's got the right temperament. He really connects well with people. I think he's a very intelligent guy. I think he's surrounded himself with very smart people. I think bringing in Scott Strickland, a former SEC head coach at Georgia and also a Georgia Tech guy back in the day, I think that was a really neat hire that kind of flew under the radar. Nice to have that veteran coaching presence as your first-year young head coach.
Yeah, and I think for me, I think 2 stand out. The first, Tennessee, obviously, with Tony Vitello, taking the San Francisco Giants managerial job, and them promoting Josh Elander. They did look across the landscape a little bit. They decided to wisely, I feel like, to promote Josh Elander to head coach. And here's the thing: a lot of people are going to look at this and go, "Hey, Tony's gone, Frank Anderson's gone. This guy's in a really tough spot." But Josh Elander, learned the ropes from Tony. He learned the ropes from Jim Schlossnagle. Learned the ropes from Dave Van Horn. It's a pretty good trio. So I think Josh Elander is about as ready as an assistant possibly could be. I expect Tennessee to have another good year, but that was kind of top of mind for me. And I think the other one for me as well is Virginia with Chris Pollard. I just feel like Virginia is one of those teams that we didn't have them ranked in the top 25 for good reason, I think. But they're also one of those teams, I think, at the end of the year that it could look a little foolish because Chris Pollard took Duke to 4 NCAA Super Regionals. That's not easy to do. And so I'm kind of fascinated, not only this year, but just moving forward to see what Pollard can do at a place with elite facilities in Charlottesville, at a place that they're, putting a significant amount of money into college baseball. Man, that's a cool hire. I think Chris Pollard really has done one of the all-time best jobs in college baseball history with what he did at Duke.
Yeah, the Duke program that hadn't been to a regional in 6 decades before he got there, and he took him to 4 supers. It's incredible. The amount of resources at his disposal now, so much higher at Virginia. And as much as we talked about O'Connor being a Grand Slam, hire for Mississippi State, the same is true for Virginia with Chris Pollard. I mean, that's like the perfect hire, an absolute, no-brainer.
Well, it's going to be exciting to see. And on that same note and theme, we could talk transfers a little bit. We've all broken down, some of the offseason moves that we saw with transfers. If you had to pick a top transfer or biggest impact transfer, who would you go with? To me, obviously a lot of options, but I love looking at Henry Ford, Virginia to Tennessee, and Chris Hakopian. I really like the Maryland to Texas A&M move, and I think that obviously he put up some flashy numbers, but I'm excited to see him in the SEC. What do you guys think? Kendall, you want to go first this time?
Yeah, sure. I could talk about Hakopian just because I saw him in the fall, but I'm going to go a different direction just because I think he's so important to this team's final goal, which is to get to Omaha. But Joey Volchko, I mean, this guy, like just from a velocity standpoint, has kind of been a unicorn. I mean, he's been up to 98, 99, 100, but he's never been able to put all the pieces together. So I just think if you're Georgia and your end goal is getting to Omaha, like if Joey Volchko doesn't pan out, like you're probably not getting Omaha. So I just think his potential like impact in terms of the good and the bad is pretty significant.
Good choice, Aaron.
I've got a couple. I'm going to cheat here.
Come on.
Of course.
You mentioned Henry Ford. And for me, that's my sleeper to win the Golden Spikes Award. I think this guy's going to put up enormous numbers. He's only a 3rd-team preseason All-American for us. I think we're going to look back and say, "Wow, how is this guy not a first teamer?" But like, it's just a loaded, it's a loaded group there at third base. But which is where he's going to play. But he could play wherever you want. He can play center field, play first base, play right field. He's going to mash. He's absolutely going to mash. But AJ Gracia is the other one. I mean, going from Duke to Virginia, elite plate discipline with power from the left side, with arm strength in the outfield. He can run. He can do everything. He's a really, really good prospect and a really, really good player. So big time impact back there for Virginia.
Well, let's talk Golden Spikes early candidates. And of course, the first one that comes to mind is Rock Chalowski, the number 1 favorite heading into 2026 when you think of just a premier shortstop and the power and consistency he has at the plate. You mentioned Henry Ford as a sleeper pick for it, but it's like looking at this season, can anybody compete with Chalowski for the Golden Spikes?
I mean, Derek Curiel, I love this guy. I mean, he's looked like such a mature hitter as a freshman last year. He moves to center field, a more kind of impactful position. Chris Stanfield moves to left. And so I just think Curiel as a center fielder, kind of the table setter for LSU. And oh, by the way, he gained, 10, 15 pounds of muscle in the offseason. He's going to hit for more power. I mean, I love Derek Curiel as well.
I mean, obviously, Chalowski's the favorite. He won the D1Baseball National Player of the Year award last year. He plays the premium position at shortstop. But I think it's kind of 1A and 1B for me with him and Drew Burris at Georgia Tech. I mean, it's just insane track record for 2 seasons. Insane track record as a 5-tool center fielder who hits for average and power and runs and plays great defense. I mean, he does everything. It's just not quite as premium a position as Chalowski, but my gosh, is he a special player? And I think that's gonna be a really fun race to follow all year long.
Yeah, what do you think will make the difference with that kind of race? Is it just going to come down to numbers at the plate?
Yeah, I mean, probably it comes down to numbers, but also, I mean, how good is your team? I think does play a factor if we're talking about that level. I mean, we've got all the players we mentioned here, Kuriel and Chalowski and Burris are all on top 5 teams heading into the season, and so if one of those teams flops, it's probably going to make it harder for their team for that guy to win the Golden Spikes award. But I think all 3 of those teams are going to be really good.
I love it. All right, thanks so much, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Michelle. Always a pleasure.
Yep, be good.